Hey everyone! Alright, today's video will be over two-step equations that involve fractions, decimals, and negative numbers. Your objective for today, I will be able to solve two-step equations. Now, keep in mind, the goal is to isolate the variable because when we get the variable alone, we know what it equals. And let's review our steps. We want to separate the left and right side of the equation. Then we want to use an inverse operation to move the constant, and that'll let us know what the first term means. Then we want to use an operation to move the coefficient. Then we will have solved for the variable, we'll check, and we'll graph. So let's do some examples together. Alright, example 1, we have 1/4 x plus 5 equals 8. So I'm going to separate the left and right sides. Now, I want to move the constant, and I want to do that because I have no idea what this means. This is our mystery value. Something plus 5 equals 8. So the inverse of adding 5 would be to subtract 5. 8 minus 5 is 3. So that means this mystery value has to be 3, and I no longer care about this, so I'm going to cross it out. So I know 1/4 x equals 3, so I'm just going to carry that down and then separate the left and right sides again. So here I have 1/4 times x. Keep in mind the coefficient is multiplied by the variable. So the inverse of multiplying by 1/4 would be to divide by 1/4. So I'm going to write that. And I know if I'm dividing by 1/4, then that's going to cancel this out, and I would just be left with x. Now keep in mind with our fraction rules, dividing fractions is easy as pie. Flip the second and multiply. So this would really be 3 times 4/1, and 3 times 4 is 12. So let's check and see if that is in fact our answer. So that would be 1/4 times 12 plus 5, and that should equal 8. So 1/4 times 12, that would be 12/1, which would end up being 12/4, and 12 divided by 4 is 3. So 3 plus 5 should equal 8, and yes, we know 3 plus 5 is 8. I'm going to rewrite that equal sign. So the left and right sides are equal, so yes, we have checked that, and now we're just going to graph it. So I'm going to put 12 here, and then I'm just going to fill in other values around it. And then I'm going to have a filled in circle at 12. Alright, example 2, 5x minus 2 equals 0.5. So let's separate the left and the right sides. Now I want to move the constant first because I don't know what that is. I don't know what 5x really means yet, but I know something minus 2 equals 0.5. So I want to find the inverse of subtraction, which would be addition. So if I add 2, then I'll figure out what this equals. So remember when we add or subtract decimals, we line them up. So 2 would be like 2.0. So 0.5 plus 2.0 would be 2.5. So I know that this mystery value here actually equals 2.5. So I'm just going to carry that down. 5x equals 2.5. Let's separate the left and right side. 5 times something equals 2.5. So the inverse of multiplying would be to divide by 5. I'm going to cross that out. We're left with an x. Now here, let's think of this as 25. 25 divided by 5 is 5, and we know that we have to have one decimal place. So x would equal 0.5. Now let's check. That means 5 times 0.5 minus 2 equals 0.5. Well, 5 times 5 is 25, and we have one decimal place, so that would be 2.5 minus 2, and that should equal 0.5. 2.5 minus 2 would be 0.5. The left and the right sides are equal, so that does check out. Now I'm just going to graph it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on, and fill in the rest. So if x equals 0.5, that would fall right in between 0 and 1. So I would just put a filled in circle there. All right, example 3. -6 minus 4x equals 10. Now, this equation doesn't have a fraction, it doesn't have a decimal, and it does have a negative. But let's talk about how this is actually different than what you've seen before. So I'm going to separate the left and right sides. Now, we know that we are going to move the constant first, but normally we see the variable, then we see the constant on the other side of it. But now they're kind of switched around. Okay, so what I want to do to make sure that I keep all my signs together is I want to lasso the terms. And when I say lasso the terms, I mean I want to look at this value here. This is a -6, so I need to keep the sign. I want to lasso those together. This is -4x. This sign is in front of that term, so it needs to stay with it. I want to lasso them together. So I need to keep in mind that this negative goes with the 6, and this subtraction sign goes with the 4x. All right, so I want to move that constant. Okay, so I've brought back the question mark. This value is what I don't know. Just that -4x. I don't know what that means. So I have this -6 here, and I want to get rid of that. Now, since there is a negative sign in front of the 6, what I'm going to do is put the inverse, and I'm going to put a plus sign. This actually means the same thing as adding 6. So I know I'm taking care of this, so I can cross it out. And 10 plus 6 is 16. So if you have a negative number, to move it to the other side, put a plus sign in front of it, and that means we're just going to add it. Now, I'm going to carry this down because I know that this value actually equals 16. Don't forget, we lassoed that sign in front of it. Now, this meant subtracting 4x, but now that there's nothing else there, this means we have a -4x. And yes, it does mean the same thing. So I'm going to separate the left and the right sides now. So -4 times some number equals 16. So I want to divide by a -4. Again, that sign is in front of the 4. I've got to keep them together. So this cancels, becomes 1. We're left with 1x. 16 divided by 4 is 4. And we know from Mike Dude that a positive divided by a negative is negative. So let's check. So -6 minus 4 times -4 will equal 10. So let's remember order of operations. We have subtraction, we have multiplication. We want to solve multiplication first. So I want to solve -4 times -4. A negative times a negative is positive. 4 times 4 is 16. Now, this is a positive 16, so I'm going to put a plus sign and then carry down the -6. And that should equal 10. And -6 plus 16 is a negative plus a positive. So when we're adding different signs, we're going to subtract them. 16 minus 6 is 10. The sign of the higher number would be positive. So I have a positive 10 on the left, and that does equal the right. Now, I want to show you guys something else, just in case this seemed a little confusing. So we're going to try this another way, because some of you may have noticed that there was another way we could have solved this. So I'm going to rewrite what we're checking. So what I did was I took a -4 times a -4, but you could do this instead. You could do 4 times -4, and that would be -16. and then I carry down what's outside of that lasso. So I have -6 minus a -16 equals 10. We are subtracting and there is a negative involved, so I really want to add the opposite, and I get -6 plus 16 equals 10, which is what we had before, and we know that checks out. So there are two different ways. The main thing is that you make sure you lasso, and then whatever's outside of the lasso, you've got to bring it down, and then you've got to keep everything in your lasso together. Okay, so we've checked it, now we're going to graph. So I'm going to put a -4 here, which means I would have a -2 over here and a 0. I'm just filling in by 2's. And then at -4, I am just going to put that filled in circle. All right, now it is time for you to try. Complete these two problems and show all of your work, and we will see you next class day.